It's time to السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الأستاذات الكريمات، السادة الأساتذة الأجلاء، يومكم طاب يومكم، ونحن سعداء كثيرا لاستضافتكم مرة أخرى من أجل مناقشة موضوع غاية الأهمية والذي استأثر باهتمام الكثير من الأساتذة، ألا وهو موضوع التصميم الشامل للتعلم. Just a few words, Dr. Hall and Dr. Xie. I was just welcoming our dear professors and tell them how special is this occasion, because we will be discussing a topic that is of great interest and importance to them. So just on your behalf, I would like to welcome them. Great. نبدأ الآن بالأمور التنظيمية. فكما تعلمون لدينا الترجمة الفورية متوفرة، فالمرجو من الأستاذات والأساتذة الذين يودون الاستفادة من الترجمة أن يمروا للقناة المخصصة لذلك. سوف أقوم بتقاسم الشاشة من أجل إعطاء بعض التفسيرات لولوج خانة ترجمة. فكما تعلمون هذه هي ربما الدليل. الدليل أمامكم. إذا كنتم بحاجة إلى اللغة العربية فيرجى اختيار اللغة. Just other words for our participants if they need to use Arabic for translation. So if translation is accessible to everyone, I will switch to English and start our presentation today. So as you all know, today we are going to be talking about strategies for implementing universal design for learning in higher education. And with us today, we have two eminent professors who are honoring us today with their experience and with their perspective on UDL. So may I first introduce to you Dr. Hall, Tracy Hall, who is a senior scientist and instructional designer at CAST, the Center for Applied Special Technology. So I'm going to give room to Dr. Hall to say a few words of introduction. Dr. Hall.
Well, thank you. Yes, my name is Tracy Hall. I am at CAST, which is in the New England area of the United States. And CAST is really the beginning space of universal design for learning. And I have the honor and the pleasure of having worked there for a number of years now. And I really appreciate the invitation to speak and work with you here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. The pleasure is all ours. Let me just tell you that most of our participants are already familiar with CAST because we have used your literature in a previous workshop. So hence the excitement today, I'm sure. Next speaker and another passionate UDL fan and specialist, I would say. We have with us Dr. Jingrong Pearl Xie, who is the Director of Universal Design for Learning and Accessibility Services at Virginia Tech. So, Dr. Xie.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's session, and I'm very happy to be invited to share my knowledge and perspectives about Universal Design for Learning. So I'm the Director of Universal Design for Learning and Accessibility Services at Virginia Tech in the US. I obtained a PhD from Special Education Department at University of Kansas in the United States, with a focus on universal design for learning and mobile learning to support students without disabilities and post-secondary education. I also support professional development and online learning with the Universal Design for Learning learns.
Thank you, Dr. Xie. As you know, our professors already know how we move forward with these sessions. So we have a series of questions. We have 4 questions. So first we will have our speakers, interact and react to these questions before we open a discussion, a general discussion. As usual, I will be using the chat box, or rather the Q&A box, to look at the questions asked by the participants, by our professors, and ask them to you as we go. But first, we would love you to react to the following questions. And the first question, and I will probably start with Dr. Hall, asking her this first question regarding the definition of universal design for learning. What makes it unique from other instructional approaches? Dr. Hall?
Thank you. So I'm going to go right to our definition that we use at CAS most frequently, and that is that UDL is a framework, and that framework is designed to improve and optimize teaching and learning for all students, or for all people, based on the scientific insights, a lot from the neurosciences and so forth, on how humans learn. And the Universal Design for Learning framework, as I'm sure you're familiar, is based on 3 basic principles: multiple means of engagement, multiple means of representation, and multiple means of action and expression. And I think as we move through our questions, we'll be able to illustrate some of those kinds of structures as we push forward. To think about what's unique, I think one of the most unique features about Universal Design for Learning is that it encourages all of us as educators to design from the beginning. All of our instruction, all of our work with other learners, we want to design from the start to reach all learners. So we need to think of what barriers there might be for those people and anyone in our classes, and then adjust what it is that we are doing in advance of the teaching session as much as possible, so that we can approach and provide those multiple means across all 3 principles of Universal Design for Learning. So design from the start, I think, is a place to think about the uniqueness of UDL in relation to some other ways in which we've more traditionally approached education.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. If I may just get a question out of the way immediately, and the reason why I'm going to ask it is because our professors here are probably not as familiar, or were not as familiar with UDL as they were with differentiated pedagogy, or what we call differential pedagogy. And this question often popped up in Arabic. We call it pedagogy al-fariqiyya for our professors. And we just want your inputs on what is different. How do you differentiate between UDL and differential or differentiated pedagogy, if we can get this out of the way as a first element?
Would you like me to start?
Yes, Dr. Hall, and then I'll go back to Dr. Xie, if that's okay.
All right, thank you. So this is not unique to this group to have this challenge of differentiated instruction and universal design for learning. Differentiated instruction is often thought of as more of a reaction to the challenge that a learner may pose. As I was saying a moment ago, the thing that is most unique about universal design for learning is that we design from the start to think about all learners and the variability of humans that we all bring to our learning situations and to life, and taking that in context and in advance of the work that we do. So we design from the start to think of all of the ways in which we can best approach the learners with whom we're working and have that flexibility to be able to alter and to provide the instruction for those who have those needs at those moments. So it's less of a reactionary and more of a proactive kind of a structure. And that design to think about applications of universal design for learning principles comes, very early in all of the teaching episodes that you design and prepare. So that might be modification of curricula that you're currently working with, or looking at the lessons in which you are preparing to approach with your learners and designing and thinking about all of the things that may be barriers and ways in which you can reduce those barriers to reach all learners, and so that they can also reach you and express their knowledge and understanding.
Thank you. Dr. Xie, any additions, or would love to hear your perspective as well?
Do I get to define UDL first, or I can?
Okay. No, please. The question is open. You can react to the definition or this question regarding UDL versus differentiated pedagogy, please.
Sure. I think well said by Dr. Hall. So basically what I want to add here, I think it's kind of echoing about the students' voices and perspectives with the Universal Design for Learning framework. It's not just about teaching, delivery, the content. It's also about students' agency, students' autonomy, what students, their learning, their preference and interest. So I see Universal Design for Learning different from differentiation instruction, because it's including inclusive design, inclusive pedagogy, but also including really actively to listen to students and get their feedback and voices into the teaching. So related to define Universal Design for Learning, so I kind of refer to the Higher Education Opportunity Act 2008 in the United States. So there is a formal definition of Universal Design for Learning, which is also the first federal legislation to define, endorse Universal Design for Learning in higher education United States. Like Tracy's mentioned about the research evidence from the fields of neuroscience, cognitive psychology, and learning sciences. So framework informs us really center students' learning needs and the preference, experience to support, provide education access and opportunity for all students. So basically, I'm really interested about a definition of Universal Design for Learning framework from a social justice conceptual framework perspective. When we talk about social justice, we talk about the challenges our society, community, individual facing today, and how we acting upon those challenges as educators in a public space. So that's why it helps us to connect with our students to really to understand students' learning interest, their prior knowledge, their background, and also supporting their agency and identity. So I think that it's how I understand Universal Design for Learning is unique from other instructional approaches.
Thank you. Linking it to social justice is an absolutely I think compelling approach. If I may just between brackets for our dear professors, I have noticed that a number of professors are trying to raise hands. Unfortunately, we don't have that option. So I will call upon our professors to write their questions in the Q&A box And I will be reading these questions and translating them to our professors as we go. So I already have a few messages here, okay, I can see one asking, can we say that UDL is more general than differentiated instruction? So that's one question. And another question, no, actually that was the only question so far. So please do use the Q&A box if you have any questions. So the question was, is UDL in its nature a more general, more comprehensive approach than differentiated pedagogy? I knew questions would come in this regard because our professors have been exposed to differential pedagogy more than UDL. So as much as we can beef up this conversation, I think they will appreciate it. Dr. Hall, if I see you nodding, maybe you want to.
No, I appreciate that this is of interest, and I think it's an important thing to help people understand. And I would agree that universal design for learning is broader and more encompassing is probably the way that I would say it than general. I think the principles of universal design for learning apply across all of our learning in the world, not just the formal learning educational settings. We are lifelong learners. We're always picking up new skills, learning new ways in which to apply those skills. And the application of the framework and the universal design for learning approach is going to work across all of those areas. So in that way, more general or I think broader is the way that I'd like to kind of to help differentiate those two. The pedagogy of differentiated instruction is more classroom centered, and that's not a bad thing. And I think that you can apply those skills across other areas as well. But I would say that universal design for learning is a much broader approach, more encompassing.
Wonderful. Dr. Shia, any additions? Would you like to share any additions you may have?
Yeah, so I'm thinking universal design for learning framework. So it's because itself is founded with three different fields like neuroscience, cognitive psychology, and also education. So it's more than just what's happening in the classroom. It's kind of connecting with the new knowledge and science discovery from the different fields. It's kind of adding the collaboration, interdisciplinary lens to help us under a bigger picture that's helping us to become a lifelong learner, and also what we learned informed by universal design for learning framework, theories, practices. So basically it's connecting with the research practices, but also from philosophical conceptual world with a specific pedagogy strategies happening in the classroom, apply those strategies, best practices across the settings. So I feel the collaboration piece and also the interdisciplinary piece is really important to think about how we advance like the educational research is not just about the classroom teaching itself.
Well said, Pearl.
Very well said indeed. Let me jump quickly to the second question and have your reactions. And this was actually put as the last question, but I thought it may be helpful to address it now. For someone who may be new to using UDL, what advice do you have to help them get started? Dr. Hall, I'll let you jump in first.
All right, well, thank you. As we often work with new audiences or people that are new to the concept of universal design for learning, we frequently speak in relation to an analogy, using a metaphor or an analogy to help people understand it. And that often comes from the physical world. So many of the kinds of things that we do with universal design for learning really apply to, as we were saying earlier, the classroom and beyond. And so if we think about some of the kinds of things that we do with universal design for learning, one of our fundamental starting points is often accessibility. And so we think of that physical world, and really universal design for learning started in thinking about, or universal design through Ron Mace, the architect, began with that physical world, making physical buildings and the way in which we access and get around more universally designed, more designed for all the variability of us as humans. So stairways in architecture were very, very popular as a way to move from a lower to a higher level, floors in a building and so forth. We now know that there are many people for whom stairs are not accessible. So ramps are frequently used, or we have a lot of power systems now, such as escalators and elevators. There are alternate ways to consider getting from place A to place B in the physical world, and we need to look at the way in which we design that physical world to make it more accessible to all learners, and so, or to all users rather. And so we need to, we've taken that concept and applied that in universal design for learning to take a look at the environment in which we're working with people learning, and the pedagogy, the instructional concepts that we're working to teach as well, and look at what can we do to make that access better. So ramps or curb cuts are a way that we can kind of physically relate to how we can give access to those spaces. And we want to look at things such as text to speech, perhaps, or the size of the font that you're using in text, or the oral way in which we present things. What are alternatives to those traditional ways in which we present information for learners, that we can have multiple means by doing so, in the same way that we can have multiple means in the physical environment. So that explanation frequently of making a connection between the physical world and our educational world can be very helpful for people that are just kind of getting that concept of what universal design is about, thinking about all users, all learners, and the environment in which we're asking them to apply this information and make use of this information.
Very helpful. Sorry, I know it's, I'm receiving another torrent of questions. I knew this is going to solicit a lot of interest. Let me just go very quickly on them, but I get your point about getting inspired from the environment and go back to the environment in order to to understand how people naturally learn, and the need for the different modes of basically reaching out to the learner. So part of the questions, I have a question here from Dr. Bakkari talking about sharing any literature regarding the theoretical background of UDL, and that's you said earlier that you're going to be happy to share that, and we will share it with our professor. So that's forthcoming. Other questions come, and again, let me also put you in a context here. In Morocco, there's a lot of reliance on the competencies approach, and obviously a lot of questions come to see how one approach fits with the other. For example, Dr. Sabah Winati says, are we able to consider the competencies approach that is adopted in the Moroccan curriculum? Can we say that it does not differ from from UDL, especially that the competencies approach as well includes pre-planning of the plans, choice of strategies and different goals. So how would you reply to this? Probably Dr. Shia, if you want to jump in to address this, to speak to the difference between competencies approach and UDL.
Sure. Thank you. A great question. Actually, when we talk about understanding universal design for learning framework, and also we talk about apply universal design for learning framework and principles into educational settings, we have to think about the context. So context really matters when we talk about UDL. Why? So if we talk about the learning context in the US or maybe in the different disciplines, it will be different. So when we think about how we apply these principles in a different educational environment, we have to think about the learner variability. So that is why universal design for learning right now is so up to the front, and also help instructors make connection with students. The research also shows within the US context here, there is the problem of racial, ethnic, and gender disparities among college students and among faculty persists across academic disciplines. We notice the racial, ethnic composition of the full-time faculty, administrators, and staff still predominantly white, while for the students with diverse ethnicities, backgrounds now enrolled ever than before. So that's the most recent data statistic report published in 2019. So the demographic change here has created cause for concern, as research shows students' race, ethnicity, cultural background, and other learning variables like poverty, if students from different social classes, also assessment practices, right? If I was born in a parents with education, higher education degree, I have assessments practice easily. But for the students, their parents struggle different jobs. They barely see the parents during the awakening time. So how are they going to practice assessments? And also there's other systematic issues. When they set up the environment educational system, whether we consider those variables. Also, different universities have different support system resources to support faculty professional development. Those create another barrier. And also we have institutional racism. So all these factors significantly influence the students' achievement. That's why we say we have to really think about examining the variables, the context, understand the context. Students, when they come into the learning spaces, they're not just about receive the content. They are individual, they have their agency, they have their identity. While if the student's identity different from the instructors in the classroom, how we understand those identity and then to connect with them, understand their prior knowledge, information, learning needs, and then provide the support. So I don't have much knowledge about the context in Morocco. So that's why what I can say is the context happening here in United States. And also I want to say, when we're trying to give the universal design for learning recommendation consultation for faculty in different disciplines, that's slightly changed as well because of the learning environment change.
Thank you very much indeed. Let me go quickly to some practical questions that I'm reading here. One coming from Dr. Gamgani and another coming from Professor Abid. The first is basically asking a very practical question is, how often do you make plans to integrate UDL framework? Do you do it on a term basis, on a yearly basis? If you can speak to this basic question, but it's still an important one. Dr. Hall?
I think that planning and thinking about universal design for learning framework comes at the development of your syllabus. And your syllabus is usually, I'm assuming that that's a component that's a part of your university work. And I'm getting a head nod, so thank you. So that syllabus is a space in which we can start thinking about those 3 principles of universal design for learning and look at ways in which we provide the information to the learners and set up the learning environment to have variability and to address the variability of humans, to have flexibility rather, and address the variability of different people in the courses. So that's a starting point. But I think that with each lecture or with each class session that's attended, that as you get to know your students and you see the variability and what may be barriers for those learners, that can help you to refine and apply the principles as needed for the variability of learners in that setting. So I don't think that it's a one-time think about it and then you're done. I think it's a frame of mind that you want to keep considering and keep thinking about what are the barriers, how are my learners doing, look at how those students are doing in terms of the ways in which you're asking them to share information back to you, and then make adjustments based on those needs.
Very clear, very clear. So it's a process that has to be integrated in the earliest phase of designing your curriculum. And in fact, this is what these RDGs with these groups of research and development are working on. So this is precious advice. Another practical question, especially that our professors and teachers have to contend with overcrowded classrooms. So one normal question that comes from Professor Abid is, how do you apply UDL when you are dealing with a crowded classroom? Any tips with regard to this, Dr. Shia?
That's a great question. Actually, we run into this question a lot in workspace as well. So basically, it's kind of more tied to the pedagogy, inclusive pedagogy. I would recommend active learning instructional strategies. So active learning instructional strategies can help engage the students, but also to help the think about design the learning activities and assessment and tie into the learning objectives. So a little bit backwards. Actually, so first I would recommend backwards design. When we design the lesson plan and the whole class, we have to think about what's the learning objectives. When students complete the course, what are the learning objectives we hope, students take away. So those will be the learning goals to guide the lesson plan and also learning activities assessment. So when we identify the learning objectives first, for example, if it's a fundamental class or it's a higher level practicum course, the learning objectives will be different. Think about the learning objectives first, and then think about assessment tools. So assessments, we know the previous session, panelists already discussed about the assessment tools, options, and also the types of the assessments. Those really matters to engage the students. And then we will think about materials and also building the reflection, have students to reflect, and also instructors will reflect. Among this, so design the learning activities should be the step 3 about the learning materials and learning activities. There, I would recommend active learning strategies. So active learning strategies is well researched with a lot of research evidence from large enrollment STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields. So to help the instructors there engage content with active learning strategies. So specifically, active learning strategies, for example, think, share, pair. For example, jigsaw or fishbowl. When I remember when I had the college entrance, the PhD program entrance examination, there we had a fishbowl. So fishbowl is really kind of engaging students. For example, you have a you can divide students. If you have 100 students in your classroom, maybe you divide them like 2 or 3 groups. Each group you divide them one more, like with 5 students, 6 students to present, to briefly talk about the major concept, and then have another 5 students to summarize, to critique, to evaluate. And overall, so each group, will have the chance to present, to talk, and also to summarize and evaluate. So that's just one example of the active learning strategies. So there also, it could be the authentic project learning, it could be a presentation, or it could be the collaborative work for writing a paper together. So there's a more than 10 specific strategies under that category. So it really works so well with a large enrolled classes.
I just love the passion with which both of you are addressing this issue. Just speaks to how much you're engaged in this approach and convinced of its usefulness. Actually, one of our participants, Professor Salouhi Bushta, and just to probably convey how our professors are getting it. He says in his comment, UDL aims at providing learning for all the learners, regardless of their abilities, capabilities, abilities and disabilities, be it visible or invisible abilities or disabilities, their levels of knowledge, in order to achieve the maximum benefit without exceptions. I just thought that it speaks to what you have been explaining. And a question here from Professor Ben Salah, and he says, in your opinion, the tools that are used to implement or to apply UDL in ICT. So, I think this is an important question to debate. Application of UDL using information and communication technologies. And the professor is saying, especially in rural areas, with the objective of achieving what you, Dr. Shia, talked about in terms of social justice. Could you speak to this, Dr. Shia?
Oh, do you mind repeat the question again?
Yes, it's basically with regard to application of ICT. How do you apply UDL principles in basically subjects utilizing information communication technologies?
I think that's a great question. And also, I think this question probably speaks to many educators' heart. Why? Because during pandemic in United States, we have the national student survey. Around 30 to 40% of the students, they don't have stable internet, or they don't have access to internet or access to computer devices. So for the students in the rural areas or in a low social economic status family, and it's really struggle for them. So if they don't have the resources, devices, and how we talk about information technology help students learning, not talking about the buyers when we design the learning environment. And also, when I was working with instructors, they mentioned about some students during pandemic, they lived in a car. So how they get access, they drive to McDonald's, and at night they sleep in a car. And also, when we talk about proctorium, when we provide examination online and we monitor students testing online, but we cannot imagine students may not have individual space by themselves. They share the spaces, and also they have very noisy backgrounds. While the testing tool would require you have a very quiet, clean, ordered space, you would have a table, you sit there, and then so there's many social issues intertwined with educational issues. In each country, I think the social issues really bring into more variables, and also as educators, how much we can address. Certainly, some universities, they probably can afford like the devices and to help the students, who need those devices, but many universities, they may not have those kind of resources. So that's why we say really we need communities, and we need many non-profit organizations, and also we need so many passionate, educators care about the people, the community, and then to make do what we can. So basically, I see universal design for learning, it is a framework, conceptual framework, but also it really centers, humanize the pedagogy. We have to really think about who we are teaching, who we are working, and what kind of barriers, ourselves and also the society and also individuals have in sharing in this space. And if we talk about inclusive, diverse, a positive learning environment, we definitely have to think about, we believe everyone can learn, but also we have to think about whether everyone has that resources, tools, and the learning variables with them, So those are many, it's not just one question can really address at this point, but really we just want to spreading, you know, the
Thank
passion
you.
and the care, the concern.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed, Dr. Shia. Lots of questions come in, 2 more questions to cover. Let me first jump to our 3rd question before I get back to some of the questions asked. And the next question is, some university students may not be familiar with strategies aligned to UDL framework. How do you explain it or contextualize it for them? So this is more about, you know, I think this is a question that concerns the majority of our participants here today, because they are trainers either at the CRMFs, that's the regional centers for teacher training, or at the universities. So Dr. Hall, would you like to react to this question first?
I would be happy to. I'd like to just respond a little bit to the previous question, if I could, for a moment too.
Oh, yes, by all means.
I think that often when we describe and talk about universal design for learning and solutions to many of the barriers that we come across for our learners, technology is an excellent way in which we can have a lot of flexibility and ways in which we can present and have our learners express their information to us. Technology is super helpful because it is so flexible. Unfortunately, I think some people interpret that as you have to have technology to be UDL, and that's a misunderstanding. There are many ways in which we can provide all of the techniques and ways in which to reduce barriers for learners that don't require technology. Technology is super helpful for us. The digital environment is so lovely and flexible. However, it's not a requirement to actually apply the principles of universal design for learning. So I just wanted to kind of put that little notion in there, although I understand that the big question came out of ICT, which of course is technology oriented.
Thank you. Very useful indeed, and thank you for reacting to that part. Could you react to this other question? Or?
Yes. To get to your question now, after my little spiel over there, there are many people unfamiliar with universal design for learning. There are actually people who apply the principles of universal design for learning for not realizing it specifically, and it becomes a nice communication device to be able to say, I need other ways in which I can express myself and so forth. So not knowing some of the strategies aligned with the UDL framework, isn't critical to understand that as a student, that you know what universal design for learning is, but rather the practices of universal design for learning are what we want to be able to illustrate and to share with our learners. So that autonomy that Pearl was talking about a little bit earlier really becomes a very much of an empowering moment for students. So as a instructor, as a professor, as a teacher, I can say to my students, we have this activity that this goal that we're working toward achieving. And there are many ways in which we can work toward that goal, and you can demonstrate your understanding of that goal to me, and to give options for ways in which that can be accomplished. And we don't have to say, hey, I'm doing UDL and this is how I do it. We can say, these are the options that are available for us. These are the ways in which you can demonstrate your understanding to me and to your peers. And that helps learners to become empowered in making the choice that's best for them. Sometimes we need to guide our learners as to the choice that may be best for them, but to help them to understand that they're empowered to be able to demonstrate their understanding, or to get knowledge and resources and information, and to be engaged in the learning process that they're involved with from multiple pathways, multiple angles. And that's very empowering, and then help the learners to understand that they can then ask for those preferences, those ways that are reductions of barriers for them to be able to learn and to demonstrate their understanding. I'm hoping that answers your question. That's how I read into it. What I think is the best way to contextualize it is not necessarily knowing UDL, but knowing that there are multiple pathways by which we can learn and express our understanding.
I think this drives to the very basics of this approach. Dr. Xie, I see you nodding. Maybe you want to chip in?
Yeah, of course. Actually, I think Tracy well said about empowering our students. So I want to give more specific example tied to the pedagogy or practices we can empower our students. So back to my dissertation study, I did a mobile executive functioning coaching, support students without disabilities in post-secondary STEM education. So basically, it's important to teach students learning strategies, executive function skills. Those are kind of tied into multiple means of action and expression within the Universal Design for Learning framework. Learning strategies, specifically when we talk about how to help students task management, time management, stress management, and also set up obtainable goal. It's really important to help students set up obtainable goal will help them prevent procrastination. Also, when students set up obtainable goal and they achieve the goal, it will reinforce their self-efficacy because that's how confidence developed. So confidence is a concept developed with a positive learning experience. If the students, they already have a lot of, negative experience in their life, when they come to learning space, how we really support them, help them to build up the confidence, self-efficacy. So those more, progress strategies help students, feel better. They can manage their learning, manage their life, and also those learning strategies applicable for their work settings. So those are just one specific example about how we help college students, to familiar with those strategies. Basically, I would say have instructors modeling practices in their classroom, teach those learning strategies. This way, students, they say so in the classroom, instructors are their role models. Back at home, parents are their role models. So if we trying to compensate the different, practices, help students to see those practices and apply those practices in their life, it's kind of helping them more than just achieve the learning outcomes in the classroom. It's kind of beyond to impact their life in the future.
Thank you for stressing that key role of the instructor as the role model and as the example, the setter basically for learners in general. Some of the questions that I'm reading here are starting to be very specific. For example, one professor is asking, how can we integrate UDL in evaluation situations, basically in evaluation. So, Dr. Hall, I see you clapping your hands. Let you address this one, please.
Well, first of all, I want to say that's $1 million question. That's so important and so exciting for me to hear, because oftentimes when we have worked with people learning about universal design for learning, they apply it all to the way in which they approach the instruction and the delivery of that instruction. And what we all want to know as teachers is, have our students met the goal? So they need to demonstrate their understanding, and that's frequently done through assessment. But the assessments have often been in a very traditional manner. The paper, the pencil, the writing, whatever that might happen to be. So if we can look at assessment tied directly in with the instruction, and so those accessibility structures that we've considered, those multiple pathways to get information and to demonstrate their understanding of that information should be considered at the assessment level also. Another thing that I emphasize a lot in my thinking and working in relation to assessment is that the tradition in assessment is frequently a summative process. In other words, at the end of a unit, or at the end of a lesson, or at the end of the semester, we do a final exam to see if everybody has learned everything. And that provides us with information to give a grade, perhaps, but it doesn't necessarily provide us as instructors, nor the learners, as to the information that they have gained and how well they are understanding that. So I am an active proponent of formative assessment. In other words, getting information from your learners on a frequent basis during the instructional episode, so that you and your students can see the progress that's being made over time. And as Pearl was saying earlier, that whole notion of, setting that goal and having information about movement towards that goal, monitoring that is really, really key. So as we look at our formative evaluations, for me as a teacher, I want to look at that and say, ooh, there are people that aren't understanding this. What do I need to do differently to get us all up to speed, as it were? That's a term that I use a lot, to get us all at that level of competence in the area I'm teaching before we move on and make and into more complex concepts. And so we need to use that as instructors, but the learner, the student, also needs to know, where do I stand in relation to my knowledge of this content area, and how am I expressing myself effectively to demonstrate my understanding, and what can I do differently to better express my understanding. And so that there's that monitoring from both sides, from the instructional side and from the learner side, to see what the progress is toward that goal. So assessment is very key. And I just encourage.
Yeah, I think it's very clear regarding how, and indeed the summative assessment, التقويم الإجمالي in Arabic, is what is traditionally used, and we use very little of the formative assessment, تقويمي, and indeed, can I just ask a blunt question with regard to what we have been talking about? Does this mean more work for the teacher? Does this mean more work for the trainer? And I think it's why I'm asking it bluntly, because it may be a question that's sitting at the back of the mind of a lot of the professors, and we may as well get it out of the way. Can I just have your reaction to this? Maybe Dr. Shia and then Dr. Hall.
I think yes and no, but I would say no, because it's proactively, So basically, in a real work situations, for example, I provide consultancy with faculty and offer, course design review. It's many times faculty, they have a classroom situation or challenge, but if we switch, if we design, like Tracy mentioned about earlier, if we think about when we design the classroom, the learning environment, from beginning, we proactively address those, variables, and also leverage the resources support, then we will reduce the chance to fix the problems. So that's why in the beginning, yes, we will invest the time to learn this strategy, but it will kind of save you a lot of time and efforts in the end along the way. So I would say it is worth for your time and efforts investment. And also another reason I think it's important to be a universal design for learning champion is we have to take care of our own well-being, advocate for our own mental health, especially the pandemic. So we have to think about, do we really enjoy our work? Do we really enjoy our teaching or research? So if we feel we are happy about what we are doing, we have a better learning strategies. Also, those basically we say universal design for learning. The ultimate goal is to train, expert learners. So basically, we are kind of learners at different range in our life journey. So if we can really model and enjoy and also advocate for ourselves, model those practices, so that's kind of, it's important for us, because we don't really want people to burn out. And we know there's a different priorities, the workload, but how we really use the strategies with research, supported evidence and works well. And that will kind of, instead of we try many times, it does not work, and then we figure out the different solution. Fail and trial, it is important, but also it's important to learn with, evidence supported research and to inform our work.
Thank you very much. Dr. Hall, I see you want to add a few points.
I can add my 2 cents. and my head is thinking a lot of things at once. So I think that universal design for learning is really a mindset, and it's helping you to look at options and look at ways in which we can improve what it is that we do for the learners and help them improve their learning skills. Traditionally in education in the United States, we have looked from the model of what's wrong with the learner, what's wrong with the student, versus looking at how we approach the instruction and the ways in which we go about doing that. So there is the tradition of instruction at the university level, I think is true as it is in the lower education or younger education, is that it's often the teacher is giving the information or the book is giving the information. And we need to look at our young people, our learners, and determine, is that the most effective way to deliver? Is that the most effective way to receive that information? And if people have had difficulty receiving the information, we often blame the learner versus looking at our curriculum, at the environment in which we're teaching it, and that mindset that we have of the ways in which we can do that. And that's why we can provide that instruction. And that's why in Universal Design for Learning, you read over and over again, multiple means of action and expression, multiple means of engagement. Look at the variations and the ways in which we can present that information. One way is not going to work for all learners, and we know that. And we've kind of tried to teach to that. We've tried to set up our education with that single approach, and Universal Design for Learning really opens that up and makes us look at multiple ways in which we can do that. And so that's why it's more of a mindset. And I agree with Pearl. I think that to switch that mindset and move from the tradition into providing universal design for learning approaches, it's going to take some work. But in the end, as Pearl said, it's very much worthwhile, and it will be more rapid for you. And you will be amazed at how you can better identify things in your instruction, in your curricula, in the syllabi that you've set up and so forth, that may be barriers for learners, and then overcome those barriers or reduce those barriers.
Thank
Great.
you for bringing in that perspective, Dr. Hall. Yeah, to say that it's flipping perspectives and looking at the problem from the learner perspective rather than from the teacher perspective, and that blame game that used to, unfortunately, mark our education experience some years ago. A number of our professors are asking for any studies that could be shared that show the impact of the approach and its usefulness and how it's proving itself. I think I have seen a number of questions going there. Dr. Shia, you please.
Yeah. Actually, I can share two of my most recent studies. While I can share a little bit findings about my recent one, actually that is tying into use universal design for learning framework to see the quality experience for the online learning for students. So basically there we scaled up to say a large Middle Western university in the United States. There we closely investigated 23 courses across the different disciplines. Within these 23 courses, they went through the quality course review. So we use the universal design for learning framework principles to check the multiple specific rubric items in the rubric to see whether the course meets the standards. With the study itself, we find the courses, if they meet the expectation with the universal design for learning framework checkpoints, actually the courses improve student satisfaction. And overall, for the courses, before the courses pass the quality course review, identified challenges including initial students' learning experience, for example, whether communicate high expectations from the beginning, whether communicate feedback plan. When we have assessment, whether we tie it into the feedback, communicate the feedback to the students, and related to the expectations for the accessible educational materials, they're tied into the accessibility, like whether the content, closed captioning, author tags, links. So also relate to the learning objectives. While for the courses address those expectations items, overall, it's kind of improved the learning experience for students who take those courses. So there's a study show the student satisfaction and retention after the course received the Universal Design for Learning framework guide the course design, the delivery.
Thank you, Dr. Shia. Any studies that could be shared with our faculty, I'm sure would be very much appreciated. Let me just say that Dr. Leist has just joined us. If I may introduce him briefly, I'll actually give you, Dr. Leist, the floor to introduce yourself. We have started some time ago, but we would very much love to have your perspective on this discussion. Let me just say that we have topped 112 live participants. This is by far one of our records, a number of attendees for these live sessions, and I'm sure that's going to multiply by tens in the near future. So Dr. Randy Leist, I hope I'm not torturing your name, is a professor at the School of Applied Liberal Arts and Social Sciences at Goodwin University. Dr. Leist?
Hello, I'm very sorry. I apologize to everybody for showing up a little bit late. I'm honored to be here. Thank you very much to everybody for having me here. I just say really quickly that I just want to reinforce what Dr. Hall just said, or what I overheard her saying about the sense in which UDL is a more of a mindset thing than any rigorous program or set of procedures. That makes it extremely difficult to research. I think in my own experience, it is hard to find hard data that makes a strong case that UDL has a difference. But I feel like one of the things that I've seen in my many years of incorporating UDL into higher ed environments is that it's not only does it have sort of a profound transformational effect on the classroom environment itself, but that effect can also ripple outward into the university-wide academic approach that the way that an institution thinks about itself, the way that it markets itself and presents itself, the kinds of conversations that faculty have. I think, although I'm not, very familiar with the research about it, my experience has very much persuaded me that if not specific, aspects of UDL, if it's hard to pin specific aspects of UDL to specific academic outcomes, the overall experience of trying to have the kind of conversations the UDL invites is from an anecdotal perspective is incontrovertible. Once higher education professionals start having this conversation, it's kind of impossible that they can't, improve their ability to reach out to students and their ability to make education meaningful and engaging for as many people as possible.
Thank you, Dr. Leist. We actually do have one final question in our 4-question series, and we've been going back and forth to questions coming from the Q&A box. And I'm going to actually ask you this final question, Dr. Leist, if you may react to it. And the question basically goes, how have you seen the adoption of UDL aligned strategies support students? If you can speak to that impact that UDL aligned strategies have on students and learners in general.
When I think about this question, I think about a few different levels where I see this happening. The most immediate level, I think, that UDL most specifically addresses is the level of students who have, maybe special needs, students who are coming from different kinds of backgrounds, students who may have specific obstacles that prevent them from succeeding in different kinds of ways. these obstacles can be, many different kinds, neurological, sociological, in terms of like a person's psychological background and stuff like that. I feel like all of the elements of UDL are geared toward inviting these students, including students, into academic work and reducing the stigma and other kinds of barriers that keep these particular students from being able to access higher education. So there's that level, which I think is like very specific and very unique to UDL in terms of how it opens up those possibilities. But then there's just the regular students in general across the board, the students who may be able to access higher education, but who may not feel fully engaged, or who may feel like they have like specific barriers that keep them from being able to access the content of specific classes. I feel like using the UDL mindset, trying to think in terms of how the academic situation can be arranged so that students can kind of find their own way into the content, not only helps these individual students who have specific, identifiable access problems, but includes everybody and makes for a more vibrant, inclusive, interpersonal learning environment. And then on the beyond that, I feel like there's an even more significant sort of transformational effect, as I kind of was trying to suggest in my other remarks, that UDL has on an institutional culture. And on the way that once a critical mass of faculty start thinking in terms of how UDL can transform their learning, that they not only transform their classrooms, but they transform the entire, institution, and maybe even beyond that, the entire higher ed space and how we think about it and who it's for and what it's for and all those things. So I feel like in those many different ways, I've personally, witnessed the ability of these techniques and strategies and perspectives and mindsets to help more people feel like they belong at college and feel like they can succeed.
Thank you so much. By the way, I think we all feel so lucky to have such a team of highly specialized and experienced professionals in UDL. So thank you again for being with us today. As I'm looking at the Q&A box, more and more questions are coming. I will just say to our dear professors that I will now go back to some questions that have either been answered or addressed. I'm focusing especially in questions that are kind of novel. And let me go to a question by Professor Amal Ftari, who says that aside from all the material challenges we have talked about and the need for engagement of professors, she's basically asking a specific question. She's saying the specific ways that the professors, and she's asking the question of specialist professors with good knowledge in didactics of discipline. And this is the kind of profile of professors who are ultimately able to apply such novel approaches. So what kind of prerequisites, if I may, does a professor need in order to adeptly apply UDL principles and integrate it in their work? Dr. Xie, I see you smiling, so you may want to approach this first.
I think for me, the core of UDL, actually, so there is a research about K-12, review of the literature about what the most effective strategies impact students' learning related to K-12. So I remember one of the top three strategies. So can you guess what's the top one? Passion. So basically, if you care, you have passion.
I'm going to say engagement.
Yes,
So
that's the engagement. Also, I think multiple means of engagement really matters, because we really want to demonstrate the joy of wonder. We want to stimulate students' interest, motivation, help them get engaged with the content learning. So when we teach, just a switch. If we are sitting in a classroom, if we think about someone teach this way to us, will I enjoy it? So if you feel you enjoy the teaching, then that's the first way you engage your students. Basically, I really think how to think about the joy, make learning fun and entertaining, help students to enjoy the learning process. But there are many components when we talk about engagement, help instructors to engage the students. For example, we really need to build relevance. We have students, when they take their classes, they have to identify themselves in the courses. For example, if you invite a group of vegetarians while you cook some meat, so you have to really understand your students, their background. So build relevance, communicate high expectations. They already heard something. If they have some doubt about their learning capability, then you need to be their champion. Yes, you can do it. So communicate high expectations with your students from early on. Provide real-world challenges in your tasks, real-world challenges that kind of involving higher order thinking skills. So that's tied to the research from education about Bloom taxonomy. So when we use a higher order thinking skills like critical thinking, evaluation, creativity, problem solving, these kind of engaged students produce the deep learning and engage them. And also the multiple dimensions of feedback, like the self-reflection, peer comments. Most important is the feedback from the instructor. Why? Research also shows the interaction, the feedback from instructors actually impact students' learning outcomes. And last piece is about reflection. Really, reflection is evidence-based practice in education as well. We need to provide opportunity for students to reflect their learning journey and think about their learning. So that's also higher order thinking skills. So really, I think everyone can do it. Everyone can be a UDL champion. It's really just really who inspire us to be educator, who motivated us from the beginning, and connect with that. Think about who impact us, our choices to choose this career, and you would want to be the person to impact, connect, and motivate your students. So when the engagement plays in, and then we will talk about the strategies, how you deliver, design your content, and also how to help students to voice themselves.
That's very reassuring. That's very reassuring indeed, Dr. Xie. Thank you for that. And indeed, some questions from our professors come in a way to ground the discussion. I mean, although we all love to fly, but some questions come to connect us to some of the basics. Dr. Skhiri Abdul Latif, for example, says, as a trainer, I'm really confused about how to practice UDL in training classrooms. And I try at the same time to make trainees able to practice it with these students. So he's in a situation where he trains future teachers and expressing that confusion. Dr. Hall, I see you nodding, so maybe you want to react to this one.
I would love to react to this one, and I really appreciate this question, because many of us are in that position of training others to do what it is that we so passionately believe in, and that is, good educational experiences. And so, again, remember we were talking about that traditional road, and I think as trainers, we've often thought of a traditional road. I need to unload all of the information I have to you. And I think that an approach to consider instead is to really demonstrate and then provide your trainees the practice of doing exactly what you just demonstrated, whether that be showing multiple means of action and expression, or showing, engagement, as Pearl was just speaking of. The engagement's really key. Are your trainees engaged by being spoken to and hearing the theory and not having an opportunity to practice? So often in training settings, what we really want to help people do is to take that information, take that practice, and use it right away, make use of it immediately. And so providing that immediate practice in a training situation as in college and doing teacher training is something that I'm assuming might be going on here, is that the opportunity to actually put that into practice may not be simultaneous. So we need to perhaps set up ways in which we can facilitate that by setting up practice sessions where we take different roles. Okay, initially, I am the student, I am learning from you. Now I am going to teach some of my peers, or I'm going to teach back to you, and putting those kinds of learnings into practice right away, and really making them a part of your experience, part of your system of instruction.
It's also so concrete and so palpable, at least,
Yes.
and comprehensive in our minds. I have a question coming from Professor Stitu, and this one probably can go basically to Dr. Leist, if that's okay. Dr. Stitu is asking, to what extent can UDL strategies contribute in grounding and reinforcing certain human values? And he's citing as example gender issues, collaboration, awareness about the environment. Is there any specific ways where UDL can be used as a strategy in order to address these issues? Dr.
Thank you very
Leist?
much. I mean, what a great question. I mean, my first response is that the value that UDL, the human value that UDL most specifically addresses, is the value of diversity and the power of bringing different people together. I think a lot of times in higher education and in all kinds of education, there's a sense that diversity is a problem because it makes more work for the professor who has to accommodate or make diversify instruction to reach different kinds of learners. But I think what UDL teaches is that when everybody is working toward a common goal, then those diverse starting points that all the students start from really helps us to understand the goal better and to understand the different kinds of ways that we can approach the goal. And maybe even helps us to get a bigger, more kind of global sense of why the goal is worthwhile in the first place. In a UDL, in a classroom inspired by UDL principles, I feel like diversity becomes sort of the hidden curriculum. It's part of the class, the individual perspectives that different students bring to a problem or to a goal or to a project really exemplify the value of thinking in terms of creating assignments that are maximally inclusive and that invite a wide range of different perspectives and approaches. I mean, I think that to me, and when I think about the world and, our problems and the future and everything like that, I feel like this is the one most important lesson that the human race needs to learn about, trying to embrace different perspectives and backgrounds. And I feel like UDL is one of the things that makes it so contemporary and so valuable in this particular moment, is specifically that emphasis on the power of diversity.
Absolutely, Dr. Leist, thank you for that. Let me just say very quickly to a number of our professors, not that I'm ignoring your questions. For example, I'm looking at questions coming from Professor Latif Al-Idrisi, or later one coming from Professor Sadawi. These are all questions that have been addressed earlier. So I will invite you to go back to the recording, and I'm sure you're gonna, because we have already, for example, talked about large classes, and we have also talked about differentiated pedagogy earlier. So I'm sure you'll find answers to that. Again, I think we're almost nearing the end of our session. We still have 10 minutes. And I would, at this point, just like to give the floor to our speakers, just to address any corner of the discussion that we did not give you the opportunity to speak to. given the discussion, Dr. Hall, Dr. Sheed, Dr. List, if you want, you can jump in if you want to add anything that we did not have the opportunity to cover so far. Dr. Hall?
I would be happy to say something that's been on my mind. And that is that when you think about universal design for learning and all the research that supports it and all the things that we can do in our instructional settings to provide a very UDL experience for our learners, it can be overwhelming. And I want to recognize that. And I think that we need to be cautious about that. And then I want to assure you that in terms of thinking about getting started or applying more principles or more thinking about universal design for learning, you can do it a step at a time. You can be a little bit UDL and get the advantage of that and get comfortable with that, and then add more to your practice in terms of the principles of universal design for learning, whether you start with engagement kinds of thoughts or whether you start with, multiple means of representation types of thoughts. That's up to you and your learners and what you think may be most beneficial for them. But don't feel like you have to do everything there is about universal design for learning all at once. Take it on and then build your skills.
That's a very important advice and tip. So one at a time, don't try to overdo it or do it all at the same time. Dr. Xie?
I really think Dr. Well said about just the kind of think about change every day, or maybe 1 week or 1 month. We set up a obtainable goal for ourselves and how we show it really works or it does not. So I believe it will work. So basically what I want to share is about refer to the resources with CAST. I think it's really a beginning step, but also there's resources related to universal design for learning in post-secondary website. So there's a lot of public free resources. And also I think join some communities like Universal Design for Learning group and trying to communicate, basically trying to learn from each other. Many times we find even today when we join the discussion, we learn from the others a lot when we're opening our minds. So really think the growth mindset, as long as you are willing, to take the first step, and you will, be on the road.
Thank you for that, Dr. Xie. Dr. List, if you want to address any lingering issue you want to share with us.
Yeah, I would just say, in addition to all of the great points that Dr. Hall and Dr. Xie just made, I think when I think about starting off with UDL, usually I think for people designing a college course, when they're first starting to think about it, they think about the curriculum, they think about the readings, they think about the resources. But I think probably the best way to start off thinking from a UDL perspective is to think about the students and to talk to the students and to think about the content from the perspective of your students and try to imagine, like, so what kinds of, how does this come across to them? What kinds of aspects of this curriculum are the students likely to have problems with? And how can we reimagine the instructional model so that it foregrounds the student perspective rather than simply presenting the curriculum? And I think that there's so many different ways of doing that. In addition to reflecting the diversity of different kinds of students, I think UDL also is wonderful because it embraces the different kinds of instructors and different kinds of faculty members and different perspectives that they bring. That UDL, rather than being like, so a specific way of doing something, I think is a model that encompasses many different ways of doing things. And that's, the emphasis on multiple means is not just a matter of like trying to include the most amount of students, but also to try to get the most out of faculty members and capitalize on their specific skills and preoccupations and talents. That the spirit of UDL to me has always been about experimentation and flexibility and casting a wider net and trying to expand the things that are already working well and to look closely at things that maybe aren't working so well in new kinds of ways. And so I think from that perspective, UDL is always very inspiring to me because it just encourages you to think harder about what you're doing and to aspire to reach out to more students and to be more creative about every aspect of the teaching process.
Thank you for being such a beautiful incarnation of of a professor, really. I mean, it's been so inspiring. We still have time for one more question, but before, I just want to let our participants know that for them to receive the participation certificates, they will need to fill in the Q&A survey that Tanya has just shared in the Q&A section. So please make sure that everyone fills in the survey so that they can receive their attendance certificates. Again, a lot of our professors want to benefit from this experience. Let me go to probably one last question. I think we've been speaking since the beginning about how UDL is really a mindset, a new perspective, and the need to shift perspectives. Can I just ask, how does one go about doing that? Because it's all clear. Yes, I mean, we want to change approaches from the traditional approach that we use just because that's what we have always known. But how do you go about trying to flip that and try to look at the problem from the perspective of the learner? Any tips you may want to share with our professors as first steps to do that? Dr. Hall?
I agree.
Or Dr. Shia, for that matter, whoever wants to react to this first.
No, it totally is a mindset. And the way that I approach it, I didn't say this as I introduced myself, but my background is in special education. So I taught a lot of students with disabilities and so forth. And in that situation, I was completely aware of the barriers of those students, or some of the barriers for those students, but maybe not all of them. And I really think that that's a starting point for us to help think about shifting that mindset, is to look at what it is that we're providing instruction about, look at what our goals are, and look at what might be barriers for obtaining those goals for different learners in your settings. Because there is so much human variability, we have to recognize that. We don't all learn in the same way. We don't all react and value the same things. And so that variability is something to think about, and that is a way to help us to identify barriers for students. And that helps us shift the way in which we think to then provide instruction, to provide information and knowledge to students by reducing or limiting those barriers as much as possible.
But isn't it a kind of an effort, an intellectual effort of asking, because almost the innate way of doing things is, I need to do it all, and I need to be the main provider of information. And this is how you tend to approach our problems when given a task for the first time. We think it's us who have to bring answers to everything, but it takes experience and time when we start actually saying, wait a minute, well, maybe there's another approach and I need to adapt. So, and that's why I'm asking this question about how do you switch from an innate, natural way of doing things to actually reflecting about better ways that are more accessible to the learners. Dr. Shia, did you want to react?
I think this is a really great question. I think it's kind of touch upon like how we being empathetic, how we opening up ourselves, and how we share the stage with. So if we say ourselves stage, how we share the stage with our participants. So basically, we switch and we intentionally to have students' voices along the way. For example, when we design assessments, like the final project, or maybe even the syllabi, right? The evaluation part, we can have students' voice, how they want to be evaluated. So give the students opportunity in engaging the learning activities and assessment along the way. Also, from the beginning, how to identify students' learning needs, not making assumptions from the beginning. That's very important. Really demonstrate feedback is a gift. So basically, if students, they can really take the constructive feedback and help themselves to, reflection or to grow. So I think there are many ways to demonstrate that. I just want to briefly, I know we're on time, so briefly share one recent study about faculty's perspective on adopting culture responsive pedagogy. So in this study, I turn myself as a listener. So the study itself is happening in a very culturally diverse university or suburban setting in Middle West University. Faculty that already been working with students with diverse ethnic background, but I want to listen to them. What works for you? What did not work? What are the challenges and what level of the support we need? So I think this kind of way also trying to one strategy to the earlier trainers question. When we provide the training to our students or to our instructors, we have to really care about what they struggle most and how we switch, understand the situation. So really be listening, empathetic, and not judgmental, and be aware of our own implicit bias. When we get into this moment, we have our own, understanding the word, but really that is single way to understand the word. So those ways to demonstrate, how we open up ourselves, willing to be vulnerable and really to collaborate.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shia. I'll leave you the last word, Dr. Laced, although it's I'm sure we can use up a few more minutes. So by all means, you can have the last words, Dr. Laced.
Well, I would just reinforce again what Dr. Hall and Dr. Shia just said. I think more than anything, I think the best thing that if you're UDL curious and you're interested in trying to start off, working with UDL, talk to the students, talk to your students, listen to your students, listen to what they have to say, take their concerns seriously. Ask them to reflect on what their goals are and why they're in the learning environment in the first place, what has brought them there, where they want to go, how they want to get there, why they want to get there. I feel like the more closely and attentively and empathetically we can listen to student voices, the easier it is to start to think about how we can change the learning environment to make sure those voices are included and respected. And that the different kinds of goals and projects and dreams and aspirations that bring students to the classroom are fulfilled in a meaningful way and addressed as part of the learning environment, as part of the entire interaction.
Well, thank you so very much. I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of our professors when I say that I personally think this has been a great session. So thank you very much for the passion, for the quality knowledge shared today, and for your availability. I am sure our professors will be looking forward to resources to read, researches that were made. I mean, this is certainly, arousing their curiosity and reinforcing their need to know more about the subject. So thank you so very much again. On behalf of Higher Education Partnership Morocco, I'd like to say thank you to you and thank you to all our professors and participants. I'd love to say sorry if I did not get the opportunity to ask questions that came through the Q&A section, but I believe we will have more opportunities to further discuss this topic. So again, thank you so very much today, and looking forward to seeing you in other opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being here. Sorry I was late.
Same here.